If you're like me, practicing guitar involves sitting down on the couch, playing the major scale once, and then watching the Great British Bake Off for an hour with the guitar next to you. But Sweetwater has sponsored an entire project that I'm doing where I'm buckling down, I'm practicing at least 1 to 2 hours every single day, trying to learn how to shred on guitar, doing it 3 notes per string style, and they have been kind enough to fulfill my dreams of getting an adequate drum machine. So I'm going to talk about this kind of ultimate practice setup that I have going on that I'm going to be using for at least the rest of this month, probably beyond. And we're just going to be talking a little bit about what it takes to get me invested, and maybe it can do the same for you. All right. So I notoriously hate practicing to a metronome, even if I'm doing I play a lot of guitar, right? And up to this point, it's been mostly just like practicing songs, doing a lot of writing, and then kind of noodling and stuff. But I really want to kind of get like really solidly be able to fluidly just like shred through the fretboard. It's hard to do that without the help of a metronome. But since metronomes bore me so much, I thought I would use a drum machine. I've used drum machines in the past, and I've also eventually gotten bored with those because they're, it gets kind of confusing when you have like multiple patterns. So that's why I wanted to check out this Electron Analog Rhythm 2, because it is so next level what you can do on here. Now, some people will be like, why don't you just use like your DAW? Part of the reason I want to do this is because I want to get away from the computer. I hate being in front of the computer. I feel like I'm in a computer my entire life. So even though I'm still using electronics, I feel like I could take these kind of like outside on my patio and do stuff with it. You just need to plug it into a power source, but it's amazing. So I'm just going to run through why I think this is like the most ultimate practice tool. And then we'll talk about a little bit about what I'm doing, and then we're all just going to have a great time together, right? So as you can see here, they've got pads like a drum machine that you might expect. You can change these pads to anything, but what's really great is this kind of sequencer right here. What also is like incredibly great is the mechanical keys on this thing. It's worth the price of it just to actually press cool buttons. I'm a sucker for cool buttons. Come at me. That's fine. I get it. But it's so easy to program in a beat, right? So if we just have like this kind of like pattern open right here, all I have to do is like, let's stop it. And then I want to just punch in, maybe I'll do like a 4 on the floor kick, right? So if it's set up to 16, 1, 5, 9, and 13, will just be like the backbeat, right? And I can just kind of practice just to that already. All right, so again, that's not the most exciting thing to practice. That's essentially just like a metronome, okay? The cool thing is you can make it way more complicated or more like an actual beat, so it has the feel of playing with an actual drummer who is always on time. And you can either, like if I switch to the hi-hat pad, I can kind of maybe just like add a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and type vibe, right? And then now I've got this. Okay, so now I've got that, and I'm playing in time. Now, again, all of this stuff is still, it's great, but it doesn't solve the problem where I'm kind of getting bored with stuff, especially drum machines over time. And that's why if you've ever seen any of the Electron stuff, they have a super cool kind of workflow that's called Conditional Triggers, which is why I specifically wanted this one and why I think this one is like actually the best in class, okay? So we just have one super simple pattern, and like let's add some kind of like snare to it, right? We can play it in if we want. Like if I hold, record, and play, and then it'll add it, right? But let's say I want something kind of interesting. Maybe I want to actually add something on the back end where I have like 3 in a row on the back. And the reason I might want to do that is because, like, let's say I'm practicing, but I don't want to just practice the major scale just forward and backward the entire time. I can kind of do this. And I know that those last kind of like, the last 16th notes at the end, I can try to match with it, right? So if I have this. or something. You get the idea. But it gets even more annoying because it's every single time around. So the beautiful thing about this is you can make these conditional triggers. All I have to do is I have to hold these three, and then I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to trigger these. How often do I want this to happen? These are the triggering conditions that you'll see right here. So if I can just move this right here, it gives me a bunch of different options. So maybe I just want this to play on the 4th time through every 4 times, right? So now when I play it, 2, 3, and then on that last time it hits it, right? So eventually it sounds more like you would groove with like an actual drummer. All right, the next thing that is super, super easy to do is to link patterns together, okay? So every one of these is like a different sequence or a pattern. So if I hold bank A and I go to 2, now I have like a second one, right? So if I play here, this is like an empty space. So maybe like I wanna, let's go back and forth between that, and maybe for this one, I'll look at the, I'll do the kick again, and then I'll do like a 1, 5, something like this. And then maybe I can even play in like the hi-hat. Right? Something like that. And then now I just have like a different pattern to go back and forth between. And then it's super easy. If you just hold this and then back and forth, it will chain these together. And then it goes back and forth between those, okay? So again, I think that's like super, super helpful as far as like building a practice routine into something that eventually you kind of react to musically. Another thing with the conditional triggers, you can set them just to happen randomly. So another thing I'm gonna do eventually, right after I film this intro part, is I'm going to sample an acoustic guitar that is playing a chord, and then I can react to that chord as it's randomly being played. So we're gonna get to that in a second. But I just really want to talk about just kind of how useful this is as far as like getting yourself through an hour of practice. Because I've been doing this for like, I started doing this like maybe like for the first 3 days, where it's like, all right, I've got my little pattern here, like. Then I switch to the next one. And I just kind of do that, and it's like, all right, I'll do that for like 10 minutes, then whatever. But I get bored of that, so I kind of need some kind of stimulus to keep me going. Now, if I'm just on like, you know, one pattern and it's just playing, it's just so much more fun. And again, it has the same purpose as a metronome, but it's just so much more musical. It feels more intuitive, and at the end of the day, practice goes by a lot faster, okay? So before I get to the sampling, the last thing I want to talk about is just editing a song. So now this is just a really quick example of just like building 2 patterns. This specific box, you can do a lot more with than just use as like a practice tool. There's like synths and stuff like that. You can like pitch shift everything. You can essentially make this like a DAW-less workstation. But again, I just think this is like a great kind of like alternative use for this too. You can actually edit a song and like build an entirely new song, right? So right here you'll see it's like, all right, pattern A1 and then A2, and it goes 1 time. I can start just kind of like going around and be like, all right, well maybe instead of just like 1 time, maybe I want that to happen like 16 times. And what I'm essentially doing is I want to build like a practice session that will get me through 20 minutes of practice. So again, this is at 120 beats per minute, so I can just do the math and be like, all right, well, how many times do I need to go through each section? It's like, all right, well, I hold function, yes, and it adds another part, and then I can say, all right, well, maybe then it switches to just the second beat, and I play that for like, you know, 18 measures and back and forth. So eventually you just program out an entire session's worth of practice. So that's how I'm going to be approaching like the rest of these just practice sessions. By the way, I know I haven't gone over what exactly I'm doing for the routine to learn these things. I think that video is probably coming tomorrow where I'm actually going over the guitar stuff, where it's like just going through the actual shapes and stuff. So stay tuned for that if you want to do this together, because I've had a lot of fun just doing it so far. But yeah, I think this is perfect because you don't need a computer. It gets me away from the screen. Again, it has the screen on here, but I think as you can already kind of see, just having things light up is just good for my soul. Having things light up, mechanical keys, nothing actually beats it. But again, I'll link you to a video that goes over all the features on this, because I don't want this to be like a demo essentially, but I do want to go over like a lot of the main parts of it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is actually using it as a sampler to record some actual acoustic instruments and then importing those instruments onto the pads and then kind of reacting to improve my ear for that kind of thing too, which is, I think, like a really great use of how the randomizer and stuff works. So real quick, we're just going to grab a couple of acoustic guitar chord strums, and then we're going to import them, and then we're going to come back and talk about how that works. All right, so now I want to add some actual real-life analog instruments that I can put on the pads and then use that to help me improve my ear while I'm practicing. I've got my Zoom H6 because, like I said, we're keeping this all out of the computer, right? This is DAW-less recording. So I've got a microphone that's on this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play different guitar chords and sample them, right? So all I have to do is do something as simple as play a chord. I'm going to let it ring out. And this, like, that was just like an A major 7. One of the things that I've been doing so far in my own practice routine is I've been doing it mostly on the A major scale. But I could do a couple things. I could be like, all right, I could play all chords in the key of A and then assign them to pads. And again, I'll show you how to do this. Then I'm randomly going to be playing those. Or I can actually play chords in different keys. So every time it triggers a chord, I'll have to respond to the proper chord that I'm playing in, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do A major and then C major 7. All right, so there's going to be some similarities between the keys, but it'll be different enough where I can just train my ear to do it, right? So what I want to do is, instead of strumming it like this, see how there's like a slow da-da-da-dum? I want it to be a sharp attack, which means it starts instantaneously. I'm going to show you why in a second, and then switch, all right? Also, I'm going to leave a long enough tail where it just naturally kind of goes away. All right, so here's the A. All right, so now that I've played it, I want to take what's off here, sample it into here. I'm just going out of the output here. I'm just plugging in mono to audio in left. And then to capture the sample, I want to hit the sample button. And then right here it says, all right, function and yes means record. So as soon as I press that, it's going to start recording everything I have on here, right? So function and yes starts recording. I'm going to play the sample. All right, so now we have the samples in here. All I have to do now is cut them up, add them to a track. Makes it super, super easy. I can just like save it like this, or I can start trimming to start, right? So you can see that like if I do this, it'll like look to trim it. You can actually push and encode these to make this faster. I want to just have the first chord on here, right? So let's see, what is it? Z. So let's move this back a little bit. I want to get this right where it starts. So you can see the waveform start right there. And then it'll end probably back here. So I can preview this again. It's pretty good on the attack right there, right? Maybe make it a little longer so it doesn't just like abruptly like get off like that. Cool, all right, I like that one. So I want to save this one. So I trim it, hit yes, then yes again to save it. I can save this as whatever I want. I'll just go through, erase this. I'll call this A major 7 or something like that. So again, the mechanical buttons. We'll say we'll keep it nice and A M A J, right? So we'll do that, save it. We're good, that is saved. And then I want to take the second one. So I'll do the same thing with the second one. find as close as I can get. Seems pretty much right on it, right? So yes, do the fine tuning here. And then for this one, what's this, C? I'll just call this C right now. C. Saving, assign sample to track, right? So let's say hit pad to assign, press no to stop. So we'll make 8 that chord, right? So I can preview that. So now when I hit this, great, okay? I'll do the same thing with the other one, and then I can start assigning them to the patterns. So now let's go back to our original beat. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put that first one and I'm gonna assign that to just the first step in the sequence, right? So now, sounds awful. So what I wanna do is I wanna conditionally make that a randomized type thing, right? So if I do this, I can hold that step, go to the triggering thing, and then maybe, I don't know. I can either tell it exactly where I want it, or I can just randomize it. You know, maybe I want it to be 10% of the time, 13% of the time, that's gonna go on, right? And then for the next chord, I'll put that on another step, right? And then I'm gonna do the same thing there. I'm gonna take this step, and then I'll have that be, I don't know, the same amount of time. So now if I have it going, kind of hear it, right? So if we have a guitar set up now too, so now when you have a guitar, you can kind of play over them. So let's just hit play. I'm gonna listen to what it is. Eventually it's gonna hit one of those triggers, right? So that was the C, right? Because I can hear them back to back. So I'd find a C, and then I'd play that over it. Again, you know, you might not want to randomly do this because it's less musically fluid, but it's a better ear training exercise. But I think you get the point that it's really cool because you can assign either specifically where you want things to change and then just trigger them like this on top of your beats, or just have them randomly come in and out and then react musically to whatever it is you're hearing, right? So again, that's just like kind of like a very quick intro on how I'm using the Elektron drum machine. But again, trust me, there are millions and millions and millions of things that you can do with this. So stay tuned. Like I said, I think tomorrow I'm probably going to post a video of some of the exercises that I've been doing over this in case you want to do it along with me. But I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit about how I have this insane practice setup. I'm running these through a mixer, through a pedal board. I think the pedal board is probably going to be its own video, so definitely stay tuned on that. Because I mean, come on. I just think it sounds so good. And this is direct into like a PA. This isn't even using an amp. So stay tuned for all that stuff. Thank you again to Sweetwater for sponsoring the series. Thank you to Elektron for providing this drum machine. If you guys have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website, and I will talk to you all soon. Thank you very much.